You can type in the chat. Nice. Perfect. Yeah. There's kind of this like split in the community where like still people are migrating from XML to Compose. But personally, I love Compose because of the way how the programming style works. So we're gonna take a look at it in a while. But yes, that's good to know. It's always wise to gauge the interest of the community and kind of like setting expectations from what we would be learning in this bootcamp. Now, the first thing I want to this bootcamp is actually targeted for anyone who has worked on Android before. So the expectation is some level of experience, maybe like entry, very beginner level. At least you know what are the basic components of Android, like activity, service, fragments, and you know how to access string resources, apply themes and colors and whatnot. And this help you to migrate from XML to Compose. This would be like a first impact for anyone who is trying to leverage Compose, trying to understand like what is a declarative programming framework and how this can be used in modern Android development skills. So yeah, this bootcamp is correct for you if you are just getting started in Compose and have like prior Android programming experience. All right, let's get started. First things first, who am I? I'm Sagar. I know most of you, many of the faces are familiar because when I run a meetup like every Monday, no, I mean like every other Monday. So I have seen familiar who have attended my meetup. Folks in online, I definitely see few familiar faces and I see new ones. Those of you who do not know me, I'm Sagar. I'm a staff Android engineer working at Vivint Smart Home. Uh, I'm a Google Developer Group organizer. Have been doing these events for like almost 2 years now, and I live in Boston. And these are my amazing organizers, Beth and Jin. They are not here in person, but they are available in chat. So if you have any question, feel free to reach out to them. There's also Linda, who is helping us out in like answering question and answers and all of those stuff. So thank you, Linda. Thank you for willing ways. Uh, Folks who have not joined our Slack group, then I would definitely recommend you to join our Slack group. The address for our Slack group is Boston Android Slack. And for specific to this Compose camp, we have created a channel called Compose camp summer 23. So the expectation is all the attendees would be joining this channel and share the learning. If if you or someone that you know is facing any issues in Compose or have like in general, feel free to send a question in this channel and we will do our best in making it collaborative, answering your questions. If you have like an open source project that you want to collaborate on, so this is your chance, this is your channel to reach out to members and we'll have people help you out. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Hmm. Alrighty. And also take a note of the channel as well. Uh-huh.
Are you gonna make these slides available?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So
Mhm.
we don't need. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yep. Folks who are online who did not hear that, we'll make the slides. So, yeah. Okay. And this is the Compose Camp channel. And last but not least, I want to give a and Rafael, who have been kind enough to give us this Accenture office space and have been helping us in coordinating all of these events. So thank you so much. Alrighty. Now let's jump into the agenda. So for today, we would be focusing everything basic. Definitely 5 events in this entire camp, and the difficulty level would be increasing from like beginner to intermediate. We would be focusing on advanced stuff as we progress more along the bootcamp sessions. But just to have like a baseline ready for all the we will be focusing on all the basics. We'll be learning how to think in Compose, how does a compose project structure look like, what are compositions, and what are some of the tools that are available in Compose Toolkit. All right, now let's jump into in Compose. Now, this term is popularized by Google, but what it actually means, how do we think in terms of like declarative programming? So, what does that mean? When we talk about declarative programming, it means constructing the UI, in this case in Android, by describing what, not how. So, we're going to learn this in a while. Let's talk about the traditional way of programming, which we have been doing till now. And the traditional way of programming is called imperative programming. So, what that means is we describe the how instead of what. So, if you were to accomplish an object A to point B, you're going to write a program that is going to teach your, the code is going to mention the explicitly to make the movement from point A to point B. And that is the traditional way of doing things, which we also call it as imperative programming. So in Android, how will that look like? Let's take an example over here. So if we have a card over here, consider this as with an image over here, a text, and a radio button. The old way of doing would be identify what all components that are required for this material card, and it comprises of like 3 UI components, and then create an XML which comprises of a linear layout, an image view, text view, and a radio button. And then in your activity, you find those individual IDs in the XML with find view by ID and assign it to a variable, and then you go on and you write your code. That is the old way of doing things. And by the way, we would be referring to this project which is created, and these are the official repository. And in particular, we would be referring to the Jet Survey app. So feel free to go to this link, which is, I think it's goo.gle/compose-samples. If you go to this repo, you would be finding a bunch of like sample apps. But for today, we will be focusing on Jet Survey, which is like a very sample app, which was like a very rudimentary sample app, easy to discuss and break down into like smaller chunks and learn together. Okay. And let's keep on talking about imperative programming. Now, let's say you have this material card and the user click, the state of the card changes. Now, when I say state is nothing but the current values which your program or your variable possesses at a given state of time. When your material card is not clicked, so the state, you can say the state has a color parameter, and the value for the color parameter is white. The user clicks on it, it turns to purple. Yeah, it may be pink as well, but I see it as purple. And when the user clicks on that particular card, it's called an event. Now, these are like key terms which we would be focusing upon in order to get how Jetpack Compose enhances your UI programming framework. So we learned what a state is, an event is. Event is any action that causes the state of your app or your program to change. Now, the event can be a person clicking explicitly on your card, or your app connecting to network and trying to fetch a list of data from the internet. And once the data is fetched, your list comprising of the material design cards is ready to be displayed. So that is all event. All right. Now, in the other end of the spectrum is the declarative programming, which Jetpack composes. Now, declarative programming is all about mentioning what needs to be achieved to the program. For example, if you want to change the color of the text from white to red, all you need to do is tell the framework that I want the color to be set to red. In the framework takes care of it underneath. So you do not have to do anything like find view by ID and all those stuff, because the framework underneath knows where all of those individual UI elements are being rendered in the screen, and it finding those individual UI elements and then applying or performing the correct operation. So, yep, now take a look at the Compose project structure. So what I'm going to do now, folks who have not installed Android Studio, you would need Android Studio to be installed in order to start programming. So for here, I'm using the Android Studio. Feel free to use whichever version you want. You can use Android Studio Beta or the stable version. That does not matter. Now, learn how to create a new project in Compose. So you go ahead to File and you click on New.
Sagar, can you share even for online the other screen you are working
Uh,
on?
Call out. Yes,
I
that's a good
apologize.
call. Yes, no, that's a good call out. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I think I will be doing a little bit of to and fro over here, or I can go ahead and share my desk. Yeah, this is better. Okay, there we go. All right, so using Android Studio Preview over here, but feel free to use Android Studio Beta or the stable version as well. So what I'm going to do is click on File and click on New, and then select New Project. Now, see a bunch of templates. For today, we are interested on the empty activity. Now you see a symbol over here that symbolizes compose. Go ahead and click on next. Give a name, the package name, the folder location where you want to select the folder location where you want to save it, and let the minimum SDK be as it is, like Android 7.0. Now I have already basic project in order to save time, but you guys go ahead and click on next. Now, after you click on next and the project has completed syncing, you would see something like this. Let me increase the font size. Okay. Now, let's take a quick look at the Compose project structure. First thing which you guys would be noticing is there are no XML files, which is really good. Now, folks who have been like working in the software industry for a while know the actual nuances and the difficulties involved in working with XML, because as XML layout keeps on growing, you keep on adding those views. And let's take an example of a game application. Now, a gaming app has like typically a lot of dynamic views being added to your layout file of your activity or your frag. Now, what happens is if you have like really complicated nested layout, uh, the operating systems spends like tons to update that layout in order to add those dynamic views. And that is why like XML parsing has been a very debatable topic in the software industry. Like few people are towards it and few people do not like it, because the more complicated the layout is, the more time is spent by your operating system in traversing the exact tree of your layout. Because internally, all of those XML IDs get generated into like a tree data structure, and the operating system navigates through all of those individual nodes in the tree. So Compose completely eradicates XML and relies everything to be declared in a functional style or a declarative programming style in Kotlin files. So that is a big win. So if you see over here, we have a folder structure, and inside Kotlin, we have a main activity, and then we have a UI. So let's start with the UI.theme. You see a color.kt file, the Kotlin file, and it declares all of those individual color Kotlin variables. You do not need like colors.xml file. And then we have a theme file, which actually bundles all of those individual color files and creates a light color scheme and dark color scheme, because that is what like you would be needing you would be needing a parent theme for your app in order to be installed in any device. And then lastly, we have a type plus the typography and all of the fonts which we have. Now, something to keep in mind is XML files will be there for other resources, like for drawable and for strings. And there's also something called as now. The key difference between the color.kt file and colors.xml file is color file intended to be used anywhere in your feature related logic of your app. So if you are designing an activity or a fragment part of your app, you need to declare all of your colors in color.kt file. Colors.xml file is still being used to generate a default theme for the app. Now, something to keep in mind that is that Compose library is still evolving. So maybe in future, Google would be completely removing colors.xml and they would be relying on color.kt. But for now, your app colors.xml just for the default theme. So if you see over here, there's also a themes which creates a default light.no action bar. So the way how I see it, maybe in future iterations, all of these colors.xml and completely be removed and your app would be completely be relying on theme.kt and color.kt. But for now, if you're working on a project, it's not wise to create an entry in colors.xml because Google strictly discourages that. So create like all of your color entries and theme related entries in the Kotlin files instead. Now let's take a activity and how a composable is structured. So at the heart of Jetpack Compose is the annotation compose. Declaring or mentioning this annotation in any function tells the Jetpack Compose framework that this is a UI element that needs to be displayed on the screen. And this is how, like earlier, I described like what declarative programming is and how it is different from imperative programming. So if you take a look over here, we are just writing a text composable. Now, if you want to see like what is the logic behind a text composable, so the short I'm pretty sure everyone knows would be Command B, and it will take you to the source code. So here you can see what all exact parameters for a particular composable. But over here, what we are telling the framework is we are just interested in displaying a name, and that's about it. The framework internally takes care of rendering a layout on the screen and then creating a text element, assigning the ID and whatnot, and does it in the background. We as users, or we as developers, do not need to be bothered about how the layout is being structured. As a developer, we are just bothered bothered about how the end screen needs to look, about what are the internal steps involved with it. Now, once you annotate a function in a particular Kotlin file and add a preview, you would see like three different sections on the top right hand corner ID. So just like a typical XML layout where we are able to see the preview of our IDs or of our layouts, a split screen, which would be showing you a preview of the composable. Let me go ahead and build and refresh it. So if you see a success needed before the preview can be displayed, so go ahead and build and refresh it. It will take a moment. It will build the project and it will display it. Yeah, there we go. And you can also enable the design mode or the code mode. Now, in order to composable, we would need a preview annotation for a function in order to visualize it. So something to keep in mind: if I remove this preview and then you go over here, it complains that there is no preview found. And I go ahead and undo it. I create a composable and then annotate it with preview. It goes ahead and shows the preview. Uh, in order to display a particular composable, we would be requiring a theme in order to render the actual. So over here, depending upon the name which you provided for your project. Now, when I created this project, I had given the name as Bootcamp July. It went ahead and created a theme for it called Bootcamp July theme. So if I do Command B on, takes me inside the theme Kotlin file. You can see there is a composable which is called Bootcamp July theme, and inside this you would be finding a color scheme and a bunch of code like helps in like actual material design, color themes, and whatnot. Okay, now let's take a look at the Gradle scripts, and we'll get to know like what are the essential library dependencies that we need in order to make most compatible. So if you scroll down to so if you open the app level build.gradle file, and see over here, the essential things that we require is the Android X Compose UI and the tooling preview. The tooling preview is for creating those preview annotations, which we just saw. And then we have like material design libraries, UI elements, which we'll be taking a look in a while. And there are like other bunch of library dependencies, which we do not need to be bothered for now. Yeah, go on.
I saw the example that you can define also more than one theme for some dark and light
Yes.
and just
Mhm.
conditional.
Yeah, depending upon, so dark theme is not like absolutely necessary for your app, but it is recommended with like modern designer practices. Alrighty, now let's take a look at the slides. All right, so we discussed about the project structure. Now I'm gonna skip these for a while, and we'll come back to event handler and UI element in a while. But before that, we're gonna take a look at the toolkit which the Compose framework provides. So we'll be referring to Jet's the app repo again, but mainly the Compose UI toolkit provides like a bunch of UI elements that were also previously available in XML as well. So we have got text and button and all of those like sliders, toggles, and whatnot. And one of my favorite resources to find out like what are the available elements in the tool kit is actually not a Google resource, but like a third-party resource. So it's called the Jetpack Compose Playground. There we go. So folks who are online, I can share this link. Seeing your message over here. Yeah, I will increase the text size of my ID. Yeah, sure. Okay. So this Jetpack Compose Playground, a list of components that are available in the material design toolkit as well as the default Compose toolkit. Like we have got car, and if you click on an individual item, it is going to give you the exact code which you need to be working upon. Also got like basic elements. So under material, we have got button. We also have, uh, let's see, do we have the layouts? Oh, okay, so we've got the foundation. There we go. Yeah. So we have also got layouts. We're gonna work in a moment, but this is my one of my favorite websites to take a look at like what all tools are available in order to make an informed decision for building my UI.
We do not need to install anything additional. Just
No. For material design, we just need to mention this library, which I showed just now. So for material design in your app level build.gradle file, you just need to mention material design 3. Now you material design 2 as well, but Google recommends material 3 going forward. But yeah, that's the only necessity.
Does the playground differentiate between
I think it does. That's a good question.
Mostly styling UC3 has the material view and all this other stuff. It's just, yeah.
Let's see.
You can actually do everything without it too if you want to. But it's a lot more work.
The playground just mentions material. Okay. No, I don't think that's a good question. But the way how I see it, so most of the elements are similar when it compared to when you compare Design 2 to Material Design 3. Now, Material Design 3 would be having a bunch of like advanced elements like a bottom navigation something like that, a bottom navigation drawer or something like that, which is absent in like material design too. But for most of our UI development cases, basic things like card, divider, drop down menu, and all of those things are similar. Yeah. And yeah, there's Material U, which Anton just mentioned. Like this is like the new material design standard, which Google propagates. But as developers, we do not need to be really bothered about it yet. Mostly designers spend their time in actually understanding all of these UI related components. But for now, we can just focus upon like the basic toolkit options. Let's see. Yes, so let's go ahead and let's start coding. So I'm gonna take it like really slow, and then we will be learning like different parameters available in particular composable. So we're gonna start with a text composable. So let's go back to our code and let's open main activity. And then over here, we already saw that how to create a preview for our text. Now, let's. So if I were to create a new color for the surface or for the background of my composable, so go ahead and wrap my text within a surface, and the surface is a material design surface. Is it enables me to add additional styles to my text or the composable. To provide a color to my surface, I go ahead and add a parenthesis and add a color variable. And then let's see, it's material theme dot color scheme dot, let's see, primary, perfect. And it goes ahead and fetches color which is mentioned for this particular project. Oh, yes. So I think if you go here and then you see primary, there must be this particular value, but we can come back to it because we have got a bunch of things to. Let's keep continuing. So now I want to make this particular card to be rounded corners. So if you can view, it is like still in square. So I go ahead and create a shape parameter over here. Let's add shape, and then material design tree actually provides a shape called rounded. Oh, I forgot a comma. There we go. Shape equals to rounded corner. Will be taking a radius, I believe. Yes, takes radius. Go ahead and import extension, that's DP. And then once it is done, over here you can see the preview to look. Now you can see there is like a background white color over here. Now that is happening because in the preview we have enabled background equals to true. Now if we remove the show background, the white color goes away. So the show background give you an idea. If you have like multiple composables created, how does all of those composables look together in your actual background? If you have a background of yellow color or red color, how does that look like? Now one of my favorite things which I can talk about it later. So I was going to talk about like how to create custom previews. So I'm going to just write a message over here so that I don't forget. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I'll be showing to the attendees how to create like custom previews. Custom previews would actually help us to display multiple different form factor previews. If you're building your app for foldables or tablets, or if you're targeting like accessibility previews and whatnot. So all of these custom previews would be taking care of it. Now let's continue with our quest for learning material design and its available parameters. Now go ahead and add a border to my card. So let's go ahead and add a border parameter, and there would be a border. Yes, so it would be taking in a parameter which would be the thickness of the border and the so let's do this. So material theme dot color scheme. Let's see, do we have, or can I use like color scheme dot, oh, okay, the default color which is available. Let's give it a moment, and then we have the border now available. Now let's go ahead and let's add some like shadow and tonal elevation to our composable. Now for this, I'm gonna add a comma and then create shadow elevation. Let's do 5.dp and let's do tonal elevation and do 8.dp. Now this is not visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna add show background true and we'll see if that works. Let's give it a moment. Okay, let's see. ID is in dark mode, that's why it is not visible. But ideally, I don't know if folks have white mode ID enabled, the light mode, and they can see that enabled. Anyone that is following along? No? Okay, it's fine. But I think the issue is dark mode of the ID. So that's why the shadow is not visible over here. But you get the gist. And an outlook on all of the available toolkit that is available for material design. So we have got like sliders, calendar pickers, and toggle buttons, and all of those things. All right. Now,
I'm sorry,
mhm.
to run in the previous, I just need to just compile or
So,
click the
so once you make an update, your composable, the ID takes care of like rebuilding it.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can show you quickly over here. Like if I remove the tone, you see automatically it says rendering preview. Yeah. And one nice thing about composable is a preview over here. You can see a button or sorry, a gutter icon over here, which will allow you to run it actual device, and you can see how that looks like. So I will go ahead and click on this gutter icon, and then here it says greeting preview. So if I go ahead and click on it, yeah, it's gonna take a moment to launch the emulator. Essentially it will do is it will be installing only the composable in your device and it would be rendering it. One important thing to keep in mind is composable does not require an activity or a fragment in order to be displayed. That's one of the things which we would be discussing probably in the fourth session. But if you have like a bunch of navigation, traditionally we would be navigating using fragments. But going forward in compose, if you have a compose navigator, all you require is like a compose navigator, and the compose navigation manager would be uh, will be navigating to all of those individual composables. Yeah, so probably we'll be taking a look at it in fourth session maybe. I can zoom it in. Yeah, this is how it appears on the device. Okay. Um, okay. Now let's go ahead and about the different types of layouts which we have. Yeah, so this is the material design 3 call out, like what are the different things in material design 3 compared to like material design 2. The official website would be yeah, m3.material.io. And I can paste it in the chat as well if someone is interested. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mahesh. You have already posted. Okay, so the question is, how do you reflect on save is the preview shown for only a component. So I think I already answered this question. Once you make any changes to your composable, your IDE takes care of like building it, rebuilding the preview and displaying in the preview pane. The preview is shown only for one component. Now for that reason, so over here, just rendering the preview for one composable. Now, if I had like multiple composables and I can use like a layout, now we have got like three different layouts, a row, column, and a box. And if I wrap multiple composables inside a row or I use a single preview, so I would be capable of visualizing multiple composables in a single preview. Yes, let's address that now, and let's take a look at the different standard layouts which we have in composable. So XML, the traditional way of creating a layout where all of your UI components or views, as we call them, was linear layout, relative layout, constraint layout, and whatnot. But for composable, there's only three of layouts. It's row, column, and box. Most of the times, you would be able to achieve your expected layout using row and column. There would be very rare cases you would be requiring a box. A box would be more of like a combination of row and column where you're trying to probably maybe render a grid of elements. Probably maybe you're creating a UI image gallery, things sort of like that. But yeah, so let's take a look at how we can create a row. So I'm gonna go ahead and open my IDE, and I'm going to create a different composable. So I already have a greeting composable. So in order to save, just copy it, and probably I can paste it over here, and I can rename this to composable 2. And over here, I can say probably goodbye. Now, let's create composable. Now, ideally, I want both of my composables to appear one beneath the other. So if I can create a preview for my composable 2, I can do like this way. So let's call this 2, and let's wrap it in a theme. And then I'm going to call my second composable, that's composable 2, and we'll call it. And if you take a look at the preview window, you're going to see two different previews. Let's see if I can expand this. There we go. But now I want to display both of this composable one beneath the other. So how do I do that? So I'm going to create a composable function. I'll start with a composable annotation. I'm going to call this as a function combined layout, right? And then I'm gonna probably no need of using a surface, just directly use a row. Then inside a row, the syntax is you call your components in a sequential manner. So oh, sorry. I mentioned that I would be displaying it in a vertical fashion, but I'm using a row. That's my bad. I'd be using a column. A row is, as the name suggests, it would be used to display components in a horizontal fashion. So instead of a row, I'll be using a column over here. Let's column. Let's import the dependency. And then inside this, I'm going to call the greeting composable. And I'll just call it name1. Beneath it, I'll be calling composable 2. And I'll be giving. Now, let's create a preview for this as well. So very quickly, let's add a show background true. preview combined, you would definitely need a theme for this, and then call your combined composable. That would be combined layout. Do that, see the preview to be updated over here. And you can see both of the composables are displayed in a single preview. And depending upon the layout option which you have used, it displays in the according manner. Now, if I were to change this to a row instead of a column, it updates into a horizontal fashion. It's pretty instantaneous, but sometimes you're going to face issues with this previews, especially if you're using a developer preview. So in that case, I would recommend just close the ID and open it again, and then it will take care of rendering it. All right, now let's move along to, let's see. All right, now there's a box. So let's take a look at create a box over here, how that will look like. This. Yeah. And if I were to expand this, just give me a moment. Over here, you see the preview combined actually so the composable 2 superimposes on top the greeting composable or the first composable, because that's how the box layout is designed. The box layout over here, it visualizes it. The way how box layout is supposed to function is if you were to create a superposition of your layout elements on one above the other, you would be using box composable. So for example, if you are creating a grid and by default do not provide any like spacing parameters, it is going to superimpose one composable over the other one directly, as we in this case, like we are not able to see hello Android anymore. But if you were to provide anything like spacing parameters, it would be displaying in the correct manner. So let's see if the slides are talking about it. If not, we can take a quick look in the playground and see how they define a box over here. So, oh yeah, we have not talked about modifier yet. So once we talk about modifier, back to box, and then we're gonna see how that looks like. But before we talk about modifier, I'm gonna talk about custom. That is something that we use. I personally use in my company in order to create like different previews for all of the feature screens that we develop. So let me quickly change this to column. Now, in order to create a custom preview, I'm gonna go ahead and create a new Kotlin file. And I'll name it as custom preview. Maybe previews. And yeah, this will be just a file. Okay. Let's see. There should be a preview. So, and we'll call this as custom previews. And then on top of this, we'll create a preview parameter. And then over here, you should be seeing like multiple options over here. Like we have got a group, an API level, we have got show system UI, but what we interested would be the device parameter. So if we go for device, then there would be device dot or Google search. That would be very much easier. So I'm gonna Google. It's called Jetpack Compose and Previews. There we go. Yep, there's official documentation available. And how we do that would be to No, this is not what I'm looking for. Ah, okay. I use annotation class. There we go. Okay. So this should be class custom previews. Okay. Um, okay. So let's and copy and paste this. So let's say you want to create an accessibility preview. So over here, you can use sorry, accessibility preview, and the font scale would be probably 2 times. Let's call this as large font. Now, if I go ahead and create annotation over here, so something to keep in mind is you can use multiple preview annotations for your composable. So we already have a default preview parameter. I'll go ahead and add accessibility previews. And the beautiful thing would be if you take at the design window, it would be displaying two different types of preview. So this is the large font, which to like accessibility, and this is the regular visualization. So sometimes what happens is if you are working on like a large scale project, multiple languages for your app, Spanish and Portuguese and whatnot. So this is a clever way to take a look at like UI looks like in different accessibility settings and different device configurations, because there's like different parameters which the preview annotation accepts. So if we take a look at the source code, so you see all of the different types of parameter. Like we have got show system UI, we have got the device, and this device parameter actually accepts a bunch of list of devices. I can send you the link in a while in the chat, but there are like default device configurations, pixel devices and whatnot to give you an exact idea how your UI looks like in different settings.
You just need to add in the notation in the previous.
Yes. Yeah. And you can create like a bunch of annotation previews. So in my organization, we have like at least like 5 to 6 different device configurations depending upon our user base. If someone is using like Samsung devices, all of those width and height of the devices, accessibility previews, multiple languages, all of those.
So you can add it cascading.
Yes.
One,
Yeah. All right. Let's see if we have got questions online. All right. Uh, All right. I think Jin and Michael have got it covered. So thank you guys for addressing online questions. I'll move along to, let's see. Okay. What I will do next is we can take a quick look at app which is created by the team at Google. So that it is one of those official sample compose app which is created in one of those repos. Now that repo has like multiple apps in it. We can take a look at the GitHub itself. So it's called compose samples. Yeah, and there's the link in case anyone is interested. There we go. But this repo has like multiple sample apps. There's like Jet News, Jet Chat, and one good thing is they also address the on which this has been developed upon. So there's like medium, low, Jet Survey, which we'll be taking a look right now. It's low complexity, friendly, and so on. So let's take a look at the Jet survey and see if something that from it. Okay, I think it makes sense for us to learn what a modifier is and come back to Jet survey. So I'm gonna skip to the slide where we talk about modifiers. Okay, now as the name suggests, is pretty much intuitive when you want to modify the visual schemes of your composable. Any to size, alignment, colors, and whatnot. If you want to make your component customized, is if you are working in a large team. I personally work in a team with like 22 Android developers. So if I'm creating a Jetpack Compose component in one of my functionalities of the app, but then another developer comes and says that I want to use the component which you built, but it is like very much hard coded. Like, for example, if you see over here in the sample app which we built, uh, we used, let's see, let me reduce this. Yeah. See over here. Yeah. We are using as 8 dp and border stroke as 2 dp. So for example, another developer comes in and says that I do not want the border stroke to be so less, I want it to be increased. But unfortunately this is hard coded, and that is where modifier comes in. So if you were to create a modifier parameter as like mentioned in your composable, and the expectation is any who is using your UI component customizes the modifier with their own settings. They can customize the color, stroke, and whatnot, and they just have to pass on the modifier to your composable. Your composable will take care of applying those styles automatically. And that is how we create all of these customizable components, or in the industry we call it as like common components. So let's take a look at like how do we want to build this. So for
It's
example,
like an override
yes,
concept.
exactly, yeah,
Like,
exactly, yeah. So for example, yeah, uh, what we can do is over here, you see all of our composables is taking a modifier parameter, but it has a default one, which is empty. So our text just appears with white color. So inside my preview, what I can do is I can create probably a different modifier and I can pass it. Or yeah, let's start with modifier in the composable first. So instead of applying it from over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to override it with modifier dot background, and let's assign a color. Um, for here, we can take the color composable and then make it like probably green. Once you do it, and you can check over here, the text changes to the text changes to green. Now let's say I want to change the text color. So let's see what are the extensions available. So is there a color? We got the size, we got the padding, we got alpha. Now I'm looking for text color. Okay, we can refer to the playground. Let's take a look at text. Let's see. With the basic text field, but this is related to material design. Okay, we'll come back to it. We can always Google if we want. But let's go ahead and other extension that modifier provides. So we have got a modifier dot background. We have got a size which controls the background of your text. So let's do probably 100.dp and 50.dp. So that increases of your text. And see, we have got a padding. We also have an alpha, which takes care of the transparency of your composables. So for padding, let's do There is a comma. Hmm. Oh, yeah. You're correct. Yeah, there should not be a comma. And then, yeah, just import this. And this takes care of the padding. Now for let's see what all extensions are available for modifier. Do I see a text color? Hmm. All right, let's see. Do this way. The color.
We could define what will be available to modify, or is any parameter?
No, I'm just checking like what color parameter available for modifier. Okay, so instead has like a color parameter separate, uh, which is separate from the modifier. Okay, so if I were to change color of the text, so that would be color dot. Oh, let's see, is there a red? Color dot. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now the expectation is if you were to override your color parameter and make it create a color parameter over here. So that would look like color, create a color. And if as a user you want to pass on like customizable colors, all you have to do is provide a color over here. Now, let's see how we can do it from a preview. So from preview, uh, yeah, let's switch this to modifier. Modifier, and then from preview on over here as greetings. Now it is complaining of like missing parameter values, and I can give modifier, or I can just create over here modify. Uh, is it complaining about? No value passed for color. Yeah, okay. So we need to create a color as well, and that can be color blue. Blue. Let's refresh this. Let's see if we can refresh this and we can build for us. Oh, there's another error. Greetings. Ah. Dot blue. Another error over here. Taking care of color dot. Right, there we go. And that is how we make our components. You provide all of those arguments in your composable, and then you create those inside your previews or your activities or fragments, and then you pass it on. Now let's take a look at the Jet survey project which we have. So let's see what we can learn from. Now let's quickly run this app and see how the app looks like. Let me see if anyone has any questions online. How do we know how and where would be placed on a screen? That's a good question. Okay. So in order to understand that, we'll take a look at the Jet survey. As a sample app, if I run it over here, it just asks for email or type in anything. It's just a dummy app. So I'm going to add like test@gmail.com and then add test1234. Click on sign in. And then it asks like a bunch of survey related questions. Like in my free time, I like to read, work out, draw, blah, blah. I'm a bibliophile. I love reading. So I'll go ahead and select read and I click on next. And it asks you to pick a comic character over here. And then you click on, I can select Spark or Bug of Track or whatever. And you click on next. And then it selects you. When was the last time you ordered takeaway? Yeah, it can want, make sure it's like a valid date. Then click on next. It gives you to add a selfie, like a take a picture from your camera. For now, I can just say strongly dislike, and then it goes as photos, which as an app developer I do not appreciate, and as an user I do not appreciate if I am saying I do not like selfies and still I'm forced to take a picture. But anywho, okay, and there we go, and that's how the entire app is structured. Uh, let's take a look at the different types of tooling which is available for exploring all of these UI elements in Compose. As a developer, so for example, if you're working in a new code base and you are very much interested in finding out uh, where this particular piece of UI element resides in code. Now, typically, it is not easily accessible just by looking into the screen and trying to figure out where the code for this particular UI element lives. So in order to do that, I'm going to use a tool called as Layout Inspector in Android. So if you take a look at, let's see, now I'm using the new UI, but people who are using the old UI, you should be seeing something called as the Layout Inspector. Uh, but you know what? What I can do that would be benefit for everyone. I can turn off the new UI. New UI provides like a bunch of like redesign of the traditional things. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, I can go ahead and disable it, and I'm gonna restart my Android Studio. All right. Okay. So this is our good old UI. Now for layout inspector, where is it? Hmm. Let me go ahead and if you go to view tool windows, and you would be seeing, let's see here, layout inspector. Probably they changed it in the developer studio preview version. So let me Google it. But for stable, they might be still be able to see a layout inspector. Uh, that's a good suggestion. Let's see. There we go. Profiler. The profiler typically shows like CPU and yeah, memory level. I don't think it'll. No, yeah, that's. Let's see. Layout inspector. To layout inspector. Ah, there we go. Yeah. Is now embedded in the running devices window. Connected device to start and oh, okay. I see what they have done. So they have embedded it over here. instead of like creating a different menu. So folks who are on stable, they might be still seeing like a tools layout inspector, and when it would be opening a different window. But since I'm on developer preview, I'm gonna click on toggle layout inspector over here, and then okay, I'm gonna expand this, and let's say I want to click on the continue button. Okay, don't show again. I click on this. Let me expand the Jetpack survey theme. Wait. Yeah. No, so for some reason it's not showing what I intend to. What I intend to show is when I click on this particular button, it actually should take me to that particular composable which is present in the code. But okay, maybe it works on a different screen. Yeah, let's give it a try. Okay, so we have got the composable open. I click on this, and am I missing something? Because if I click from here, it definitely shows like the surface. And I click on surface, survey bottom bar, animated content, free time question. Yeah, but the expectation is maybe if I try and stable, it will work. Sometimes most of the things are broken in developer preview. If I click on free time question over here and it highlights the entire composable over here, and I right click over here and I click on go to declaration, and it takes me to the exact line of code where this is being written. So you see over here in survey, they've created a free time question, and that is how you navigate around in your code base if you are new to a code base and you have got a bunch of UI elements. Okay, so that's one of the neat things which I wanted to show. Okay, now let's get back to the content of the course. Uh, okay. So we took a look at like single which is visible somewhat in this manner. Let me go ahead and minimize running devices. Okay. And let's see how we can create an image in Composable. So for let's take a look at a radio button with image row, which looks something like visual entry. So you see over here, they have created a surface, which is a material design, like a background layout on individual components would be rendered. Inside that, they have created a row because they want all of the composables to be aligned in a horizontal fashion. And then they create an image. This is the syntax of creating an image for Jetpack Compose. What you need to do is you create a painter, and then you create a painter resource, and it takes an resource ID. So where does this take? Uh, let's see where they have. So it takes as like an argument over here, which is like a drawable resource. And if you see in project, if you expand drawables, they have a bunch of resources present. So for Spark, all these PNG images and everything. So when you're creating your preview, you are providing your parameter, or when you are calling that from your activity, it renders the composable. And that's how they are creating an image. A spacer is just like as the name suggests, it creates all of those space between your individual composables. Take a look like how do we, so someone asked in the chat like where does the compose framework know where to lay out all of those composables where exactly on the screen, and how everything works together in a coordinated fashion. So for that, if we take a look at the app, you would be seeing a main activity, and then over here what they do is they set so traditionally inside your activity or your fragment, you would be setting your layout file as like a set content layout, maybe if I remember it correctly. But that is where like you add your layout file as an XML to your activity. But for Compose, all we have to do is like mention a set section, and then add a theme, and then add your content. Now for here, they have created a navigation host which actually talks about the one which I mentioned. Like you do not need to have activity or fragment installed in your app in order to navigate from one screen to another screen. Because if you take a look over here in this particular sample app, your navigation controller navigates from, let's say, the welcome screen, and then it navigates you to the survey screen and the survey. All of these screens are individual composables. Now we'll be talking about navigation host in a future session, but for now, just enough to know that how to render a particular composable within an activity. So for example, if I this nav host and I'm just interested in probably showing a single choice question. So let's see that call single choice question preview. Uh, let's see on this app. And there we go. The app just changes into that particular screen instead of showing the entire framework from like user to the server screen to the survey results. That is how you are supposed to use your composables within an activity. Now, the as to how the framework knows where to lay out which element where. So it goes in a sequence. Take a look at single choice question preview. Let's see how it does. So over here, it creates a dummy, it's like a list of possible answers, and then it calls the composable single choice question. Now, if we go inside single choice, you would be seeing a question wrapper, and within it, you would be seeing another composable called radio button with image. Idea is the framework starts reading in a sequence, like from top to bottom, as and when it encounters like a layout variable, for example, uh, a row or a column or a box. It first creates that, and then within that, it keeps on adding all of your composables in the sequential fashion. Like if it is a card, and within the card, it iterates inside, and then it creates an image, and it creates a text and a radio button. But yeah, that's the idea. For folks who want to dig down how Jetpack Compose navigation or like in general it works, there is one beautiful book which is written by like a developer, and it is called Jetpack Compose Internals. The price of the book is a little bit expensive, but it is worth it. If you ask me, I think back when I purchased it, it was like $40. I don't know if
Pretty heavy slogging.
yes. Yeah, but this guy Jorge has done an excellent job in explaining what it actually happens behind the scenes. So as I explained, like in XML layout, they render a tree data structure, and they these individual views in terms of like individual nodes. For Compose, they use a slot data table. So there's a data structure called slot data, or I think it's just called a slot table data structure. Yeah, but this book actually explains how the framework identifies all of those individual components, how it creates like composition. Now we'll be learning about the composition lifecycle in the next session, but essentially, like traditionally, like different lifecycle methods: on create, on start, and on pause and whatnot. But for Compose, we have like three different sections: composition, recomposition, and side effects. So that is something which we'll be learning in the next session. But yeah, let me go ahead and copy and paste the link in the chat. Anyone who is interested can take a look at it. Paul, yes. To answer your question, I use StudioBot all the time in Hedgehog. It is like very useful tool. Something that I use now. We can take a quick look since Paul asked about it. So, for example, if I have a design something like this. Oops, let's open the this is the jet survey, right? And get this design. All I have to do is ask StudioBot is create composable material design view inside the card. There is an image, text, radio button arranged in a little manner. I click on submit and it goes and creates that. So yes, that's actually a good call out, Paul. I would definitely highly recommend using StudioBot for new learners. It makes life easy. There is also, in fact, a feature within the ID you can directly ask what within a piece of code. So, for example, if you downloaded Jet Survey app and you are really not sure what is going on inside this surface and border and this modifier and whatnot, what you can do is like you can highlight a portion of a code like this, and then you can write. And then there is an option called Ask StudioBot, and you click on Explain Code, and you click on Submit. And then it goes ahead and explanation. There we go. So yeah.
If I may,
Mhm.
I used the studio bot a couple of days ago when I was doing some debugging of serialization.
Okay.
And I took an exception,
Mhm.
serialization exception,
Okay.
and so I tried it out for the first time,
Mhm.
and it told me precisely which in this big long
Right.
sequence of JSON code,
Right.
and it was great.
Right. Yeah. Very impressive. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like, so this was announced in I/O, Google I/O, and before that, everyone was using ChatGPT, but this guy absolutely killed ChatGPT in terms of Android, because the way how Google describes it, StudioBot has been trained specifically on Android, whereas ChatGPT is more of like everything under the sun. So yeah, definitely I will recommend, using StudioBot. Well, it's lovely to see that. Yes, yeah, I'll use it all the time. Alrighty. I think we are about time, but yes, that was it for everything for today's session. So yeah, as I mentioned, like um, this was like more of like everything about the basics. So we learned compose project structure today, the very basic way of like creating UI components using Compose Toolkit and an image, the different types of layouts which are there, row, column, and we learned how to create a preview, how to compose app and whatnot. In the next session, we would be learning how to manage event and states. So it would be more of if you have a button in your app and you click on it and it takes you from one screen to another screen, how does that look like? How to add animation or app, how to use more of like customized modifiers and styling and whatnot. So agenda, you can join in our Compose Slack group, which is mentioned over here. Yeah, and then feel the Jet Survey app, which is created by Google, and feel free to play along and ask questions in the channel as any trouble. If you have like more experience in Compose and you're working on like a side project, we will definitely do in helping you out and whatnot. But yeah, now I open the floor for questions.
So how do we get your slides?
Oh, the slides. Yeah, I'll
Okay, fine.
or I can just share in the Slack channel. Yeah.
I need the slide to get to the Slack channel.
Okay.
If you can share from both,
Yes.
because not everybody online right.
Yeah. I can do that. But yeah, I think the same set of slides for like all of the sessions, because this has like a bunch of slides. I think this has around 126 slides. Covers like almost everything what we intend to cover, even states, navigation, and whatnot. Yeah. Let's see online.
Email would be good.
Yeah.
Is
Right.
this session recording?
Yes. Linda was right. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. You used a shortcut to show code. I think you said it was Command
B.
D or Command E.
B as in ball.
What was it?
B as in ball or bear. Command B.
Okay. The function is, since I don't use the standard key bindings, I use Emacs key bindings. Do you know what the function name is?
No, I'm not
I know
sure.
I use show declaration and
Go-to definition.
go-to definition.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's
On
one.
Vim, it's GD.
Yeah.
I know you're Emacs guy, so
That's okay. That one was fun.
Alrighty. Okay. Any questions, folks? Yes, Paul. Yep. ChatGPT has been great too. Yep. Alrighty. If there are no any further questions, we are good to wrap up today. Yeah. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.